Yes, that's right. It's Joe here live for Joyrider TV, back with some more Q&A for all of your catamaran sailing questions. Yeah, we've got quite a full session lined up for you today. We are going to be looking at what to do with the mainsail and traveller when writing a capsize. Yes, we are going to be looking at what is going on if your boat is mysteriously losing rig tension. What could that be down to? We're going to look at how to optimally trim your mainsail using the main sheet. Yes, that could be quite a big one. And we're going to be looking at, which is actually in response to Justin's question that I just saw in the live chat, what causes the rudders to stall when you're sailing at speed. But first, yes, we are going to be kicking off with today's key subject, which is how to get from 19 knots or less, you know, maybe when you're going for a speed run, you're hitting 17 knots, let's say, how to get it up to that magic 20 knots. What is it that is stopping you from achieving that goal of breaking through 20 knots? I think this is a fun topic to start off with. After we've been through this first topic, I'll jump into the live chat and say hello. So, and I have made notes, thank you, to keep us on track. So this is actually sparked by Matthew, who has submitted a speed of 19, I think it was 19.9 in the new Facebook group Global Speed Stick Challenge, an easier way to log your speeds on the speed stick. And he's not quite getting up to those heights of 20 knots, 19.9, so close. What is it that is really going to take you beyond that speed and to the next level? Well, so we'll just do a recap on what is our general technique for getting the big speed out of the boat. All right, so here we are. So we're mostly talking about course and sail handling. Is that a good way of putting it? And sail setting. So always nice to get set up on like a regular upwind course, not footing or close reaching, but upwind. Nice to get set up on that upwind course before you even look at going down the mine shaft, going for that speed run. Because while you're on the upwind course, you can get settled on the trapeze, your helm and your crew. It doesn't matter which format you're going to be sailing in. So if we zoom in here, so you could be double trapezing or single trapezing, or you could be sitting in single-handed or sitting in with both people on the boat sitting in. You can sail fast in all of these modes. So but if we're going for gold, we're double trapezing. Before we go for the speed run, let's get really locked in to position before we take it down the mine shaft. So taking it down the mine shaft basically means turning from our very safe, stable upwind point of sail to a more fast, unstable, lively beam reach. And then from there, we're going to try to get even further away from the wind, but with the hull still lifted. That is how we're going to achieve these high speeds. So let's get locked in before we start that transition. So if we're double trapezing, and yes, it's going to be a little bit inefficient for a little while before we send it down the mine shaft, but we want to move back a bit on the boat. Now, this will depend on the type of boat and how much wind there is. But if there is let's say 18 knots of wind or more, then you will want to get pretty much as far back on the boat as possible and get really locked in. So having your back foot under the rudder stock as the helm, front foot on the corner of the trampoline, or if you're sailing like a flat boat, like a Hobie Tiger, for example, then having your feet wide enough apart so that you feel really steady, stable, and locked in position. It might be that you have your back foot on the back beam, but if that feels like your feet are too close together to be stable, better to have your feet wide enough apart to be stable rather than not feeling stable because you've got them close together, but you're bracing against the back beam. You might need to, if you don't feel like you've got the traction, you might need to look at upgrading your traction on the side of your boat. Yeah, so getting locked in that position. If we're single trapezing, 2 up on the boat, then the crew could have, firstly, actually, the helm right back as far as you can possibly go against the back beam. From that position, it's very easy to work the main sheet. You're also very much locked in. Have 1 foot under the toe strap, 1 on top of the toe strap, because that means if you do start heeling, you've got something to resist against if you're feeling like you're going to slide down the trampoline. But get far back, and then the crew could have 1 foot either side, right at the back of the boat. Very nice. If you're looking at sitting in, going for a speed run, then again, same position for the helm. Don't know, no, you can't really see this because it's black on black, which difficult to see. How about the red? Yeah. So the helm as far back as possible, crew right there next to them, so that again we're getting in position before we start to send it. If you're single-handed, and this is a new category on the speed stick leaderboard, is single-handed Hobie 16 no trapeze, and the speeds, I think we're up to about 19 knots, which is pretty good going there. So just getting locked in first. Okay, so that is phase 1. We're locked in. So next thing we want to do is take the boat from our safe, steady upwind point of sail to the beam reach. Now, to turn this corner, whenever we turn away from the wind, and I know a lot of you might have heard this before because we do talk about this quite often. It's because it's one of my favorite topics, so it seems. But as we turn away from the wind, we always need to sheet out as we turn away. If we don't sheet out when we turn away from the wind, if it is strong enough, like anything above, let's say 14 knots, maybe even 12 knots, if we don't sheet out when we turn away from the wind, what are we doing? We're forcing the bow down. And what is going to happen there is 2 things. The less dramatic thing is just you'll feel a lot of resistance in the rudders when you try to turn downwind, because your rudders are fighting against the mainsail, because the mainsail is trying to pull us up into the wind. Your rudders are trying to turn downwind. So when we turn that corner, sheet out a bit, and you'll know if you're sheeting out the right amount, because if the bow drives down at all, it means that really you need to sheet out a little bit more. So what we're looking to do is keep the boat completely flat as we turn downwind. So if as you're turning, if you're feeling the bows are driving down a bit, ease a bit more main. If you've already established your traveler setting for the speed run or for the beam reach, then put the traveler there before you turn, and then you won't have to ease as much main sheet. So as a rough guide, 16 knots of wind, any type of boat, before you turn from upwind to downwind, just ease the traveler just before you're about to turn, ease the traveler down to about halfway where the toe strap is. And then from there, you can then do this easing of the main sheet as you turn the corner. And if you then on your beam reach, side on to the wind, if you feel that you haven't got enough juice to cook that goose, then that's pretty good. Then you can bring a bit of traveler back in, but it's getting round that corner, which is going to be your first sort of hurdle to encounter. So then once you've decided on your traveler position, you could then bring the main sheet back in if you feel that your hull is sitting a bit low in the water. If your hull is sitting quite high, sheet travel out a bit more if you've got the time. But the main sheet, key point here, the main sheet is always your number one power control when it comes to stopping the bows from going in or stopping the boat from lifting the hull too high. So if you're driving your car, if you're coming into a corner without knowing the corner was there, what's going to have quite an immediate, well, actually it's a terrible analogy, doesn't work. I was going to say easing off the gas, but actually you'll still be rolling quite quick. Stepping on the brakes would probably work quicker. So think of sheeting out as stepping on the brakes, whereas letting the traveler out would be like changing gear, either up or down. Does that work as an analogy? Yeah. So easing the main sheet, putting on the brakes. But no, don't use that analogy at all. Let's forget that one. But the main sheet is your key control for power, and your traveler, we're just going to set so you don't have to be working as much with the main sheet. So to achieve this high speed, right, so what we're trying to do is get the boat beyond the beam reach, but still with the windward hull slightly lifted. We're just looking, how far can we go here? I put all these boats here because I thought it looked enticing. So we're just looking to get the windward hull just lifted. So we're not looking for it to be up here. We want it so that we've got just the tip of the rudder blade still in the water. That's as much as we want. And we want to get the boat as far downwind as possible. The way we do that, hull lifts, sheet out a little bit. So sailing along, hull lifts, sheet out a little bit, turn downwind. Then once we're on the new course, sheet back in. Again, we're using the main sheet against the leeward bow. So if we ever feel that the bow is driving, sheet out a bit more, especially when we're turning that corner. Once we're on the new point of sail, then we can sheet in again and then repeat as we go along. So if we're on this course and we lift the hull, then yes, sheet out a bit, bear away more. This is when we're really unlocking the speed. Bear away more. Once we're on the new course, sheet in again, trying to keep that hull out of the water. So balancing the sheet against the bow and the hull flying. There we go. Okay, so let's say you've already been doing this. And okay, if the hull comes down, we want to keep the hull up. If the hull comes down, then we might have to head back up, because as we are coming down here, there's less hull flying energy. So we might need to come back up a little bit in the lulls. So this is for the gusts. We're going to dive it down. This is the mine shaft. In case anyone was wondering, what is the mine shaft? There it is. Okay, so from watching Matthew's video on Facebook, what I thought is there's a lot of people kind of at this similar level where Matthew is charging. It looks like he's going very fast, but the windward hull isn't really lifted. It's still very much in. He had his main sheet really cranked block to block. Tip of the hat for that. Well done for having the main sheet in enough. But he was not playing the main sheet very much. And if you're not playing the main sheet very much, it means either you're playing it extremely safe, which is good. You know, we want to keep everybody out of hospital if at all possible, and very safe to do that if you're not having to play the main sheet at all, because at no point is the hull lifting. But by not playing the main sheet, it means you can't sail with as much power on. So what do we do? I've written down here, if you generally never need to ease the main sheet, it means that your traveler is out too far. So just travel in a few inches, that much, and then sail the boat from there and start working with the main sheet more. I'm going to give you some top information when we finished, which is really going to help on this, by the way. Sorry, I've written down if you are broad and okay, yes. So if you're already down here and you head up hard, and this is what happened to Matthew in the video. If you're down here and you feel like you're getting away, it's getting away from you. So let's just we'll take all these off. So if you're steaming it down here, we've got our true wind, our induced wind, and our apparent wind here, because we're going really fast, is going to be kind of like this. So if we suddenly, like if we get hit by a big gust, hull comes up and we think, all right, our best line of defense is to really yark the boat up into the wind. What's going to happen is we're going to slow down. So that effect is going to get less, which means the apparent wind is going to come round more as we've slowed down, which means you're going to get hit harder from the side, which means you're more likely to go over sideways. So if from that broad reach, or from that mine, let's call it the mine shaft rather than a broad reach, because for the apparent wind, it's not really a broad reach, it's more of a beam reach still. So if from that mine shaft position you yark it upwind without sheeting out, then there is a likelihood that you are going to really fly the hull high, because suddenly the wind is hitting you side on and you're going to feel like you've got a lot on there. So 2 good points there. If you're never having to play the main sheet and it feels very safe, you're probably unlikely to go beyond 19 knots. So travel in a bit more, then start working more of the main sheet for the gusts. Work on your hand coordination technique. Now, this is the bonus feature here, is just this morning, I've been editing, doing a great job editing my latest video. And I think it is one of the best that I've made, video, which is on speed inside the speed run. What really goes on when a speed run, quite a successful speed run, is going on. And I'm using a brand new camera angle to really home in on what the hands are doing, to control the tiller extension and the main sheet and the traveler and the jib sheet. So how are we controlling all those things? And I'm doing it from the context of being single-handed on the boat. So that video is coming out on Sunday, but for channel members, one of the perks of being a channel member of Joyrider TV is you get early access to the videos, and hopefully I will remember. I'll take what I'll do, this is what my mother does, is she actually puts her watch on the other hand to remind her that there's something she needs to remember to do. So I've taken my watch off. Hopefully that is enough to remind me to set it to members only after I've finished this transmission. So there we go. You'll be able to watch that once the Q&A has finished. Lovely old job. All right. Yeah. So that's coming on Sunday. That, I think, it is some of my best work, actually. Yeah. Worth a watch. Thank you. All right. So I think we're going to park that there. We've sailed pretty fast already today. Yeah. So yeah, as advertised, I am going to jump into the live chat to say hello. And taking line honors today in the live chat, we've got Justin in Texas. You can see Justin in action on Joyrider Worldwide, where everybody is invited to upload their own videos for everyone to see. It's an initiative to get your videos more views because it's a bigger channel with more videos on it, which are being uploaded from around the world. Quick advertising feature there. All right. So Justin says, quick question. I'll come back to that quick question, actually, Justin, because I've got that next on the list of questions to answer. And Justin is in Texas. We've got Boris on board. Greetings from Florida. Boris continues. Easy question. Is the Hobie 16 lines kit from West Coast Sailing any good, or at least good enough? Now, I don't have experience with this kit in particular, but I'm sure if West Coast Sailing has put together a Hobie 16 ropes kit, it will be almost identical to the factory ropes kit that you get with a brand new 16. So I would guess, my first instinct is yes, it will be very good. So I think if you just want to buy a pre-made all there kit, yeah, that would be a good option. Okay, and I'd like to say thanks very much to Boris for kicking off the super chats for this Q&A. Super chat is a great way of supporting Joyrider TV and showing that you appreciate all this solid gold information that is coming your way. You'll find the super chat just next to the chat window. But thanks very much for that, Boris. And that is what is keeping the Q&A ad free. Otherwise, you'd have to be waiting for the ad to say go skip ad. It's quite annoying, I think. So I thought this was a better way. Okay, and thanks very much to Hussein in Egypt also for the super sticker, keeping the Q&A ad free. All right, and Hussein actually says, I have a set of the rope kit from West Coast Sailing and hasn't used it yet, but they look and feel like the originals. Thanks for that, Hussein. All right, we've got Bernhard on board, who was just here in Vasiliki, Lefkas, Greece last week, but is back in Austria now. Great to have you on board. Hussein says, I spent a week of coaching with Joe in Vasiliki. Every coaching time with Joe is a leap forwards. Thanks for the endorsement, Hussein. Yeah, I think if you really want to nail your catamaran sailing, then there's nothing better than actually having direct feedback in real time with an experienced coach like myself. Yeah, so coaching is available. There's a limited amount of coaching available because, of course, we're into the season now and I'm quite booked up. But yes, there we are. Thank you, Hussein. Christian is on board. Good morning, Christian in British Columbia, I believe. Then we've got Jim on board. Jim from Pittsburgh with the Hobie Pearl. Yes, it was Jim who I gave a birthday shout out for. He has got an issue. Starboard hull is taking on water. It has done it on the trailer and in the water. Can't see a leak. All right. So I'm going to put that on the list. So I'm now, because we've got a few in the live chat which have made it onto the list. I'm going to call that leaky pearl. There we go. List is being amended as we go. So I'll come on to that shortly, Jim. Got Kevin on board. Kevin, of course, the skipper of the rather rapid foiling NACRA 20 FCS flipping the Thea bringer. And Kevin says, the description of doing the speed run reminds me of when you and I went for that blast in Como last year. Happy times. Yeah, that was something else. On the GoPro telemetry, I think we hit 32 knots, which is like, I don't know, it's like time travel or something. Nice to have you on board, Kevin. And great to see you a couple of weeks ago in Texel. I got told off for calling it Texel. On Texel. Okay, we've got MSOK1234 on board. Been having a go on a Hurricane 5.9 SX in the light to medium wind, but think we're too light, under 150 kilos, hull flying on double trapeze. So considering Formula 16 or Spitfire, which is better? All right, that's a good question, actually. Can I add that to the list? Well, I'm asking, and I'm going to do that because I don't want to be putting other people to the back. I just wanted to check in with everybody who's checking in. So this is I'll call you MSO if I may, or MSOK, and that is F16 or Spitfire. Not sure if this makes for the best viewing, is watching me struggling to type words in. All right, then we've got Destination Horizon on board. Good morning from sunny Florida. Missed the last few of these for work. Just wanted to pop in and say, pop in for the algorithm. Thanks very much. Catch the replay later. All right. Hussein says, please hit the like button. Thank you very much, Hussein. Yeah, the like button lets YouTube know that people like it. So that means YouTube will let more people see this, which is very nice. Got Alistair on board. Really helpful explanation. Thanks for coming. Max is on board. He's not in Rosenheim, Germany. He's in windy Vasiliki, Lefkas, Greece. Yeah, I was just talking to Max 20 minutes, half an hour ago. Glad you can make it, Max. We've got Scott dripping it in the slot. If he's already been sailing today. Okay, MJT 2025 on board. Finally got you live. Nice that you made it. Thanks. All right, Boris says that rope kit only costs $120, which does sound a bit on the cheap side. Yeah, so I'll have to check that out at some point and see what I think from the listing on the internet. Any sort of reminder. All right, MJT is actually Marty from Switzerland. Great, nice to have you with us, Marty. Okay, and then we've got Ryan is on board. Okay, and I've one of the preloaded questions is actually from Ryan. Ryan in Maui, up early, keeping bees. All right, so there we go. I think we are checked in with everybody who is checking in at this time. Thanks for checking in. Thanks to everyone for being here. So next one on the list is from Justin, and the kind of cutting a long story short in the question is what causes, let's go, what is and what causes rudder stall? So rudder stall is when you're sailing on a usually on a faster point of sail, which wouldn't be upwind, but if you're sailing upwind footing mode / close reach, beam reaching, these are the points of sail which really put more load on your rudders. Sailing upwind doesn't put so much load on your rudders, or it does load them up, but you're not sailing as fast. You'll feel rudder stall more when you're sailing faster. Okay, so if you're reaching, sailing along nicely, you could be sat on the boat, but more likely if you've got at least one person out on the trapeze, because that's putting more load on the rudders, and everything's going well, and suddenly it feels like, maybe it feels like the rudders just stop working. You might even think that they've popped up, but they're still down, not working. Or it might feel that the boat suddenly slows down, almost like, I usually compare it to the feeling that you'd get if maybe you've thrown a bucket or your capsize writing bag off the back of the boat, and suddenly it's like, whoa, we've just slowed down massively. Now, what rudder stall is I don't need to draw this actually, is your rudders, most likely the rudder on the leeward side of the boat, so on this side of the boat, gets an air pocket or an air bubble around it, so it's not getting that nice even flow of water. Because what we're looking for on the rudder, if there is our rudder and here is our water, we want the water flowing around the rudder like this. But if we've got rudder stall, what we're getting is, it's a bit like if you've got your mainsail oversheeted, is we've got on, the water is approaching and it's hitting one side of the rudder too much, so we've got a load of turbulence there. We've got separation here, which is causing an air pocket, and we've got generally a pretty dicey time, which you might think, oh, that's what happens when I'm steering. No, it's not the same as when you're steering. And Justin did ask, could it be, if I got a rudder here? This is what I say every time I'm looking for something to use as a rudder. All right, we'll go for this one. So Justin said, is it because my rudder isn't raked forwards enough? So if the rudder goes back like this, is that going to cause rudder stall? Not directly. If the rudder isn't, you know, really, we should be trying to pull the rudders under the boat as much as they'll allow. There aren't very many boats that actually allow you to pull the rudder under the boat too far. So we want it to be straight down in line with the transom. So if the rudder is allowed to go back too far, what that is going to cause is very heavy steering. That is when you're having to pull on the rudders like with all of your strength, or all of your grip strength even, to hold on to the tiller extension when it becomes loaded up. So that isn't the vibe. That isn't causing the stall. It's not going to be very nice, but we're talking about rudder stall here. So that is if the rudder blade, we should be looking for it. How do I get that? Yeah, so there's no gap. My hand is the blade. So there's no gap in between the blade and the stock at the front. Now, rudder stall is caused by the rudder blade being able to go from side to side. So if you think, if at the top it goes from side to side a little bit, that movement is being amplified down the length of the rudder blade. So at the tip down here, it's moving a lot from side to side, which is causing this effect. So how do we eliminate the rudder stall? have I got a bit of, oh gosh, don't know if I have, is in between the rudder stock and the rudder blade. First one is we can use shims, plastic discs, which go between the rudder blade and the stock, basically to pad it out to stop it moving. Now, even better than using shims on a lot of boats, what you can do, it depends how much space there is in the rudder stock. So if there's a lot of space, what I've done in the past is actually glued a piece of rubber to the inside. Can we see in there? Yeah, so just to that inside piece, glued a piece of rubber, both sides, and that really takes out all of that movement. But we have to be careful that it doesn't make it too difficult, sorry, to put the rudder blade up and down. Yeah, so the other thing that we want to do to remove this sideways movement is make sure that the bolts that hold the rudder blade are adjusted correctly. The tension on the bolts, which I would recommend, is so that when your rudder is up, and like if you've just got the lower casting attached to your rudder blade, so take the upper casting off if you really want to get it perfect, lift your rudder blade, and then when you drop the rudder blade, you just feel a little bit of resistance. So it doesn't just slam down. It doesn't stay there, but it kind of goes down with some resistance. And then with the upper casting, we want a similar thing so that when you let go of the upper casting, there's just a little bit of resistance. Now, while we're here, just to look after your rudder blades, make sure while you're doing this sort of servicing, just have a look at the inside of your casting. And this type of cast aluminium is very soft. So if it takes a hit, like maybe it would even be in your trailer, or if like the upper casting especially can take some hits, it might get bent inwards slightly, where there's a little bit sticking inwards, which can cut a groove into your rudder blade. So we don't want that. So when you're taking your rudder blade out of the casting, just have a look for any imperfections, bits sticking inwards on there, then just take a file and just file that imperfection out so it's nice and smooth. I've actually filed the edge off this one so that it definitely isn't going to cut into the rudder blade. There we go, top tip. Okay, so that is the cause and the cure for rudder stall. There we go. Thank you very much. Continuing. All right, I'm just going to do the next. All right. Just got a new entry in the live chat, and this is Michael's 7653, who has just bought a Nacra 570 Mark II. That is a good choice. Such a good boat. And I'm not just saying that because I did a video on it. I really like the Nacra 570, the 500, and of course the 450, which I just sailed the Rondon Texel. Yeah, on the 450, the leisure boats from Nacra, fantastic, so good. He says, from the videos I watched, I assume catamarans can't be sailed without capsizing. Is that true? It's not true. Catamarans can be sailed without capsizing. If you watch the videos of Joyrider TV, you'll see that most of the videos where I capsize, I've actually capsized deliberately to demonstrate the procedures to bring the boat back upright. But with the right technique, you can go catamaran sailing without capsizing. If you're worried about capsizing, don't go out in too much wind too soon. this is one of the main mistakes that people who are new to the sport make. They get down to the beach, see it's blowing, they want to go fast because that's what cat sailing's all about, or one of the aspects. But without the experience or of having been out catamaran sailing before in lighter wind, the likelihood of capsizing is greatly elevated. So go out in light wind first before you go out in strong wind. Might sound obvious, but it's going to make for a much more pleasant time. There we go. Thank you very much. So the next question on here is from GeoBro N6P, who says, or actually, before I come on to GeoBro N6P, I think better is going to be if I address the questions of everyone in the live chat. That's a better idea, isn't it? So we're going even more here with Command B. Let's make them bold. So this question is from Hussein, who asks, this is another sort of, I've made the question a bit more brief so that I can say it a bit easier, is what do you do with the main sheet and the traveler? What is the actual definitive, what do you do with the main sheet and the traveler when you're bringing the boat back upright from capsized? Okay, I would say if there is enough wind to capsize the boat properly, like if you're not capsizing the boat as a capsize drill exercise in light winds, then what you should do is keep the traveler central, but make the main sheet loose. Take the main sheet out of the cleat. Never, ever, ever release the main sheet from the boom or from the sail. If you're sailing like a Dart 18 where the main sheet hooks into the sail, never take the main sheet off the sail. Now, why is this? And this is the same reason for why I wouldn't let the traveler out if it's a particularly strong wind, because if there isn't any tension in the mainsail at all, and especially if we've got a boat which also has a jib, and even more especially if we've got a boat which has a self-tacking jib, we need to have a little bit of tension in the main sheet, in the mainsail, sorry. So let's look at the why not rather than the why. I think the why not illustrates this point much easier. So if we've got a jib, or let's go to the extreme, we've got a self-tacking jib, like we're sailing a Tiger. A self-tacking jib has the issue after a capsize of you can't release it entirely. It will always have some tension in it. So if we've brought our boat back upright after a capsize, self-tacking jib, and we've completely released the main sheet, what is going to happen to the direction of the boat? What's going to happen is the jib is going to be pulling the front of the boat away from the wind with nothing at all to stop it, because you and your friend are still in the water holding on to the front beam or the dolphin striker. And this happens a lot after a capsize on a Formula 18 style boat, is you feel, I can't get on the boat because the water is actually, the boat is going along because it's been allowed to turn away from the wind. My legs are being dragged underneath the trampoline and I can't actually, what would you say, resist the pull of the water underneath the trampoline to get back onto the boat. So this is why we need some tension in the main sheet, because, well, I keep saying the main sheet, I mean the main sail. So we've got the main sheet loose, but with the traveller in the middle, it means there will be a little bit enough tension in the mainsail that means the jib isn't going to be able to take the boat away from the wind. Instead, we'll have a bit of pressure in the main, which when the boat isn't moving, we know is going to take the boat more into the wind, which means it's not going to sail off while we're holding on to the front beam or the dolphin striker. That is why when it's windy, we don't want to let the traveller out when we're righting the boat after a capsize. And that is pretty much the whole story there. Like, if you can see how bad it would be if you released the main sheet from the sail, the boat could just turn all the way downwind, and eventually you're not going to be able to hold on to it. So you're going to be in the water watching your boat sail off on the best broad reach it's ever done before it goes into the side of a super yacht or into, through, I don't know, a pod of dolphins or something. So there we go. That is what I am saying there. So I hope that helps. Definitive. Light winds, if it's not so windy and maybe you're doing a capsize drill, it can help to let the traveller off as well, because getting the sail unstuck from the water can be a bit more tricky. But in heavy winds or trapezing conditions, let's call it, keep the traveller in the middle. Okay, so Alistair says, Michael, all right, yes, this is a good point actually from Alistair. Michael was saying he was concerned about capsizing when going sailing, and Alistair says maybe use a masthead float to prevent the boat from inverting after a capsize. Because sometimes if you capsize, how can we do this? All right, yeah, this one. If you capsize and let's have a mast, please. And the boat is like this in certain situations, and it happens more readily actually on the smaller boats. So if you sail a Dart 15, Hobie 14, what else? The Mini Cat, then because the mast is relatively short, it means two things. One is that the angle at which the boat sits is more over, which means, like, here is our pivot point here where the boat is resting. This hull is more this way over the pivot point, which means there's more weight that is going to make the boat invert. So that is the first reason why a shorter mast will lead to the boat inverting more quickly. The other reason is because the shorter mast means we're also not getting the same level of resistance because of the smaller sail as well. Like, a bigger sail is going to take more pressure to force it under the water. So Alistair says a masthead float can be a very good idea if you are concerned of the boat inverting. Yes, thank you, Alistair. All right, we've got Julian Ran on board. Hello, Julian Ran. I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to do these Q&As. You have no idea how much you've helped me improve and, more importantly, understand all the small details about cats. Thank you so much for saying that. It's nice to know. that this solid gold information is appreciated. And that is, I was just saying to someone earlier who said, why is it that you do the Q&A every week? If you're not getting so many people watching it, I think by doing the Q&A, I could make such a big difference to somebody's weekend by doing it on a Friday, that it could help to avoid something really bad happening, like some sort of disaster while you're out sailing, which could easily be avoided just by saying, don't release the main sheet from the sail before you write your capsize, something like that. Just to clarify that, when I say don't release the main sheet from the mainsail, do uncleat the main sheet so it goes out, but don't actually detach the main sheet from the mainsail. That's just absolute clarifying that point. Thank you. Yeah. All right. Bernhard says, had that Tiger speeding. Oh yeah. So Bernhard said, had that on the Tiger speeding with us under the Dolphin Striker last week. Yes. Really quite an uncomfortable place to be, because while it's happening and you're grabbing onto the Dolphin Striker, you're like, I don't know how we're actually going to get out of this situation. So what it would usually take is one of the people like really using all the energy that they have to get a foot up onto the Dolphin Striker, climb up onto the boat, get the rudders, shove them into the wind, and then the other person could get on the boat. Yeah, tricky. All right. So next question. And this one is from, sorry, it was about the leaky pearl. Sorry, I can't remember who it's from. Oh, it was from Jim in Pittsburgh. So the starboard hull is taking water. So it has done it on the trailer and in the water. So if it's leaking while it's on the trailer, it makes me think that it is most likely, when it's on the trailer, going to be leaking through the hatches. Because these hatches are, they do kind of give up a little bit as they get older. So you could just try taking the hatch rings off. So the hatches will have the ring that it screws into and the hatch itself. Take the ring off, and if when you take it off, the hatch actually snaps it, that the ring snaps in half, that's a good sign that your hatch is past its best before date. So you can easily get a hold of new hatches, which always come with the rings that they screw into. Make sure you get the right size, ideally with the same screw hole pattern. So for those of you who don't know what we're on about, if we look at the hull from above, there's the front beam, back beam. You'll have one hatch here, one here, and the hatch has an outer part which is screwed into the hull, and then the actual hatch itself screws in to that. So take the outer part off and scrape off all of the old sealant. But if it is an older hatch, while you're doing this, I don't know how much hatches cost these days. Probably about, guess, $15 US, 15 euros, 15 pounds. Yeah, because scraping all the old sealant off is a bit of a job. Get the sealant off the hull as well, the old stuff. I would use a Stanley knife blade for doing this. Careful, kids, don't cut yourselves. A Stanley knife blade to scrape the old sealant off the hull. Put on new sealant, like a ring of sealant around there. I'm not endorsed, but I use Sikaflex marine adhesive for doing this. Works really well. Get a new ring of sealant in there, get your new hatch in, screw it in. Make sure your hatch also has a rubber seal. Now, if your boat is leaking when it's in the water, and perhaps it's not particularly windy, if the boat is just sat in the water for some time, another place it could be leaking would be the bung housings and the bung itself. So back of the hull, we've got a bung housing that is kind of like eye-shaped, and then the bung goes into that. So same thing. Check that, have a look at the bung, or you might call this a drain plug or a stopvan. If it looks like the threads on the bung are really worn, then that is potentially a place where water could get in. If the bung doesn't have a rubber seal, like a ring, a gasket on it, another place where the boat could leak. If you sail from a sandy beach, then sand could have got in there and basically worn away at the inside of the bung and the screw thread, which could mean if you need to replace the bung, you probably need to replace the housing as well. So same thing applies with getting the old sealant off, putting new sealant on. There we go. All right. So I think that is where we're going to park that one. So we've done Leaky Pacific. We've done. All right. Next one is from Ryan. Yes. So Ryan's question, which I have, Ryan in Maui, sails a Nacra 500 more than anything else, I think, is what is going on if you're mysteriously losing rig tension? Now, this wasn't actually Ryan's question, but I thought I'd make the question sound a bit more intriguing. And this would be on a boat that you generally leave the rig tension on, like a Nacra 500, like a Formula 18, anything like that. And any boat which has, there is the middle of the dolphin striker, comes through top of the beam, and we've got a ball where the mast sits on top of. Now, first thing I would check, if, let's say, you've put the rig tension on and you feel, yeah, rig's nice and tight, then you come in from sailing and the rig is as loose as a goose. Could be two things. One thing could be, can we see this? Oh, we can just about. That if this was a shroud rather than a trapeze wire, the eyelet here, when these eyelets get worn out, they can break. And when they break, they actually fall out, which means that your shroud, the wire that holds, or forestay, any of the rigging wires that hold the mast up, if that, it's called a thimble, if that thimble falls out, it means that your shrouds are effectively going to get longer. So checking the rigging is a good idea, but you can actually do all the checks you need to in one. It is going to involve you dropping the mast. So drop the mast if your rig tension is mysteriously coming loose, because if you don't drop the mast might actually end up dropping itself while you're out at sea. Better you do it while the boat's in the boat park or on the beach. Drop the mast, have a look in inspection of your rigging, but the place you might not actually think it, that the tension could be getting lost from, is from this ball at the bottom. I don't believe I've got a ball here. But the way these balls go on is there'd be a screw thread on the end of this dolphin striker rod. and then the ball screws onto that thread. Now, sometimes once the ball has worn a bit, it can actually start rotating with the mast. So when the mast goes round, the ball rotates as well. And if you think about it, with the mast loaded up with tension, when it rotates, those plastic threads inside the ball don't stand a chance. So it's just going to get looser and looser and looser. And not only is the thread going to disintegrate, but also because this rod is then just going to be pushing up against the inside of the ball without the threads to help it distribute the load. That bit where it's resting is going to get worn pretty quickly, which means the ball is going to, can I say the ball is going to drop? Yes, the ball is going to move downwards. Let's like a bit of an illustration. The ball is going to move downwards, which means the mast isn't going to be as high up, which means the rigging's going to get looser. And that is where your rig tension is going. Now, Ryan said, what can we do about this? There's only one real cure, because you could try using a bit of tape on the inside or something to pad it out, but you need those threads on the ball to help support the weight of the mast. You don't want the ball to be able to move at all. So the only thing you could do is a new ball. There we go. I said it. New balls, please. Tennis season, is it? Okay, so next one is all right. So Ryan said the threads strip out. Would you use a thread locker like Loctite? Yeah, I think that would be a good shout. If when you put the new ball on, you don't want that bad boy moving. So yeah, if you can have it so that it's like use some Loctite so it can't move once it's screwed on completely, then that could make your ball last a lot longer, I would say. All right. So rudder stall done. What's going on? If you rig tension, capsize. All right. So the next one is from MSOK, who was sailing an Hurricane 5.9, felt it was a little bit too powerful at 150 kilos combined weight. I would say 150 combined, you should still be all right for a Hurricane 5.9 if that's what you happen to have. But what you need to do is set the boat up better for being, I wouldn't even say you're lightweight for it. I'd say you're medium weight. I know there's a lot of heavy guys who sail the 5.9s, but back in the day, 150 kilos, like some of the most prolific Hurricane 5.9 sailors of all time, which was Robin Smith and Lisa Gatton, they couldn't have been much more than 140 kilos, and they were dominating the Hurricane 5.9 circuit. Granted, it wasn't the SX with the new rig with the square top mainsail, but it's not even a new rig anymore, is it? Let's face it, 20 years. Relatively new. But with the square top main, you should be able to depower more effectively. So what can we do to help us depower the boat before we start looking at getting a new boat? We can pre-bend the rig more. Yeah, we can pre-bend the rig using, rather than going into a tremendous amount of detail here, I might just steer towards some videos. Just look at Formula 18 Hobie Tiger pre-bend, and then the pre-bend video will be there. But by pre-bending the mast more, it means we're able to flatten the mainsail more. We're able to pull the downhaul harder. Very nice. Then second thing, most effective thing to do is more mast rake. If we put the mast more to the back, It's going to help us to depower more, especially on the upwind. Then next thing we can do, we can sail with higher amounts of rig tension. We're looking for, don't know what the tuning guide says for the 5.9, but if it's like the Tornado, which it is, I think, then we'd be looking at about 28 to 30 on the loose gauge for the rig tension. That's going to help to really flatten off the whole rig as a whole thing. And the last thing that we could look at doing, if we're feeling that it's too much power on the Hurricane, is swapping out the top 3 battens for much stiffer battens, because those stiffer battens aren't going to curve as much, and they're going to help the boat to basically open up at the top like a bird's wing, like that. Do you like that? And that is going to help us to depower. So if you were looking, having said that, if you've already got your heart set on getting a new boat, F-16 or Spitfire, basically the Spitfire has been said it was one of the early F-16s. It was actually around before the Formula 16 was around. Now, what is the Formula 16? It's very similar to the Formula 18 class, but designed for lighter weight sailors. I would say that if you're 150 kilos combined going into the Formula 16, you are going to be on the heavier end of sailing those boats. All right, we don't own the Hurricane. Okay, we would just like to get a boat of our own. Okay, thanks for letting me know. Yes, so I'd say at 150 kilograms of Formula 18, you'd be really in the sweet spot if you're looking at racing for a Formula 18. 150 kilograms, bang on. Formula 16, perhaps a little bit on the heavy side. You will absolutely be dominating when it's windy because you'll be able to keep a lot more power on. But both of these classes, Formula 18 and Formula 16, are what's called a box rule class, where any manufacturer can build a boat as long as the boat measures. So the length is correct, the width, the weight of the boat. They're restricted in what materials can be used to build them, basically to keep the cost down. Sails have to be able to measure, so they have to be a particular size, mast length, things like that. The Formula 18 sweet spot weight-wise for a Formula 18 would be around 150 kilos combined, which is, for everybody in the US of A, 150 kilogram is 330 pounds. There you go. Or anywhere else that uses imperial weights. The Formula 16 suits a lighter team. I would say the sweet spot for crew weight there would be more like 125, 130 kilos combined. The unique selling point of the Formula 16 class as well is that you can race them evenly as a single hander, mainsail and spinnaker, or as a double hander, mainsail, spinnaker and jib. Formula 16 or Spitfire. Formula 16 is much more modern than a Spitfire, all of them, because the Spitfires probably stopped getting built, correct me if I'm wrong, I would guess around 2012, possibly. Whereas the Formula 16 is very much a current boat where innovations are still being developed. It's a very popular fleet everywhere, pretty much. Not as popular as the Formula 18 because that is more established. Yeah, the good thing with the Spitfire, you'll be able to get one for less money. And I'm guessing that you're in the UK if you've been sailing a Hurricane 5.9, which I think is where most Hurricanes are. There's still, I think, I don't know for sure, but I think there are still Spitfire fleets, like there'd still be a good Spitfire nationals in the UK. So there we go. That is what I'd say. So if you've got the budget, F-16 be a bit more of a lively ride as well. If you want something for less, cheaper, but still the Spitfire is a great boat to sail. Really fun. Yes, Spitfire's got it going on, but don't rule out the Formula 18, because there'll be a lot more Formula 18s on the second-hand market than either of the other choices that we have spoken about. Okay, so we have now been going for a full hour and 10 minutes, which makes me think, if you have been enjoying the session, getting some good information from the session, then do feel free to show your appreciation by using a super sticker or super chat, just to make a small donation to the cause, which is helping to keep the Q&A ad free. Because without any ads, I'm just doing this, you know, because I care. Thank you. Want you guys to have a good time out there, and I want you to be safe as well. Very important, especially when you're taking it down the mine shaft. Okay, we continue. All right, I've got one more preloaded question, and then I'm going to finish off with anything else in the live chat, if that is okay. All right, so this one has come from GeoBro N6P, who says, I've just bought a Dart 15. Very good choice. The Dart 15's a very versatile boat. I need to stop going off on one about every question that comes in. I think then I might get through more questions, let's say. And we're talking mainsail settings. Okay, so let's talk about mainsail settings when depowering. So when we're not trying to lose power, when we're just trying to set the sail so it is optimal. Yeah, good choice. So what we want to do first is, yes, I've talked about this before, is when the boat is on the beach. For those of you who come to these often, you know exactly where I'm going with this. When the boat is on the beach, let's put the mainsail up on the beach, not if it's blowing 20 knots, but what we want is a light wind or no wind, good time not to go sailing, to have a look at things. And we need to establish our minimum downhaul setting. Very important. The downhaul is like our on-off switch for the mainsail. No downhaul means the sail is going to have this sort of shape, no shape at all. When we pull the downhaul onto the minimum, we're going to get a nice curve in the mainsail. We need to establish what our minimum downhaul setting is. So, Dart 15, sorry. So what we want to do is we want to pull the downhaul on until we get rid of all of these horizontal creases in the mainsail. That is the first thing that we want to do before we look at anything else. So we're going to get rid of the majority of these horizontal creases. If you do find you've got like vertical creases that are coming from the batten pockets like this, that's because your battens aren't quite tight enough. So if you're getting those creases, you're going to have to drop the mainsail and tighten your battens just until you get rid of these creases in the batten pockets. Okay, but we're talking about getting rid of these horizontal creases in the mainsail. Okay, all right. So once you've got rid of these horizontal creases in the mainsail, then want you to put your main sheet on, go to the back of the boat and pull the mainsail in until the mainsail, the back edge, this edge, the leech of the mainsail is in line with the mast. If it comes too far, let's say the wind is coming slightly this way, or we've got, and this is with all of the battens popped on the same side. So the sail has got a uniform shape to it. So if we pull the mainsail in and the leech, the back edge of the mainsail, comes further over than the mast when we're standing directly behind the boat, that means we've pulled the main sheet in too much. So just ease it off until it's in line with the mast. And that is our starting point for where we're going to have the main sheet. Now, having pulled the main sheet in, what that has done is that has pulled the sail down. Yeah. When we pulled the sail down, what do we think that might happen to the downhaul is it's effectively made the downhaul less strong because it's pulling the sail down, which is going to take a bit of the load off the downhaul, which is going to have put some more creases into the front of the sail. So pull the downhaul on a little bit more till you get rid of these creases with the main sheet still pulled on, making sure that your boat isn't going to capsize on the beach. And then we know we've just established our minimum downhaul setting. So we should then take a calibration sticker like this, or if necessary, a piece of tape, or on a Dart 15, you're likely to have a silver mast. So you could take your marker pen and just put a line like level with the eyelet in the bottom of the sail. Just put a line on the mast. So we've got our mast now. So we know when we pull the downhaul on, that is our minimum setting with that sail on that mast. Okay, so then having done that, how can we trim the sail? Got a lot going on here, by the way. How can we trim the sail? We'll trim the sail by looking at the telltales on the sail. Oh, thanks very much to MJT 2025. Oh, that's Marty for the super sticker. Thank you, Marty. Keeping the Q&A ad free. Okay, so we've got telltales on the mainsail, one on each side in a few different positions up the mainsail. And what we're trying to do, and this is if we're not trying to depower, is we're trying to get these telltales flying straight back. So this is when we're sailing. So if the telltale on the inside of the sail, which if we're going this way, the inside would be starboard, which is green. If that telltale is lifting, which would look like that, it means we can pull the mainsail in more. So if the inside is lifting, we pull it in. If the outside is lifting, or if it's not even visible because it's doing strange things on the back of the sail, then we can let the sail out. So inside not lifting, inside not flying, we pull it in. Outside not flying, we let it out. But I hear you cry. On my sail, we're going smaller scale. On my sail, I have got 3 sets of telltales, and I can't seem to get them all flying the same. Focus on the bottom ones, because the main sheet is going to have a more direct effect on the bottom of the sail, which means if we pull the sail in enough, like if the inside one is lifting on the bottom and we pull it in so that's flying, yes, the upper two might still be lifting on the inside, but what we're always paying attention to is not oversheeting. The green telltale, or the one you see through the sail, is telling us if the sail is in too tight. Having the sail in too tight is much, much worse for our boat speed than having the sail too loose. So if we pull, let's say the top one, the inside telltale is lifting. If we pull the sail in so that that top one starts flying straight back, there's a chance that the outside one at the bottom starts not flying straight back. And it's much more important not to have the bottom of the sail oversheeted. So that is why we should focus on the lower ones rather than on the upper ones. There we go. I'm going to park that there because I think if I go any deeper into this, it might become quite confusing. And also, I've got to wrap this up fairly soon. Okay. So back in. Yeah, so I hope that helps, GeoBro. Let me know and then we'll know. Okay. So we've got Sail Limnos. Oh, Sail Imos a Navigar. Oh, from Spain. That explains. Greetings from Paul. Nice to have you on board, Paul. 2 years ago, I bought an old Hobie 18 from 1994. Learned to sail. Lovely. My old Catamaran broke down from so much sailing. Now I have another one from 2001 race. It's not new, but it's much better than the first. Always nice to have a better boat than the one you had before, I would say. Very good. I'm starting to participate in the regattas of my club, CVB. This whole journey began thanks to watching your videos. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for letting me know. It's always nice to know that the videos are hitting the spot. Yes. Thanks. All right. So last one in the live chat is from Ivan. I'm just going to say, Ivan, I'm a little bit short-sighted. And okay, if I have the screen any closer, see what happens. See, it's in the view of the camera. So there we go. Ivan says, thank you for all of that you do and teach. Amazing. Where can I get that fancy downhaul calibration sticker? Yeah, to be honest, to actually put these in the post is a bit of an effort, but because we haven't got a post office anymore and the post from Greece is unreliable and takes forever and it's expensive. So it actually costs more for the postage than it would for the stickers. At the events that I'll be going to in the USA, I'll be taking big stash of downhaul stickers with me. But I will work on getting some made from my online store where you could pick up a nice, this is the Formula 18 Joyrider t-shirt like this. Very nice. Yeah. If you want to support Joyrider TV, get some merchandise. It's a good way of doing it. Or hit a super sticker like Bernhard just did. Thank you very much, Bernhard. Yeah, merchandise, super stickers, become a channel member of Joyrider TV. Channel members get early access to videos. And if you join as the Joyrider Academy channel member, you also get access to the full classroom series on Joyrider TV. That is a good series. Yeah, few little ways you could support the channel, which helps to keep things going. All right, RJ Fleet is on board. Hello, fellow cat people. Hello from Lake Benton, Minnesota, USA. Great to have you on board. Right at the finish line. Yeah. All right. So what is left to say? Tomorrow, reason I'm wearing F18 today, tomorrow I am going to be filming a how to build a Nacra Evolution video. Yes, I am. Wild Wind Sailing Holidays just taken collection of a Nacra Evolution. So looking forward to that one. Yes. What else? So we've got the hand coordination, one of my best ever videos coming out on Sunday. For channel members, I'm going to be making that available to you as soon as we've finished here. It's one of the perks of being a channel member is early access to the videos, because we've got to make it worthwhile. You can't just be supporting the channel for nothing, can we? Thanks very much to Fawn G for the super sticker. Jolly decent of you, keeping the Q&A ad free and keeping the Q&A going for a little bit longer. Yeah, what else is going on? I think that is about the size of it. So yeah, good stuff. Going sailing this weekend, get on the speed stick, keep it safe, keep your main sheet attached to the mainsail if you've capsized, but keep the traveller in the middle if it's windy when you're bringing it upright for an easier time. Thank you very much, and I'll see you soon with some more on Joyrider TV. Thank you.